Hello, I'm Eamon Berta.
And I'm Nicholas Ford. Welcome to a special bonus episode of Newspeak. Today we're going to be discussing the Donald Trump's Middle East peace plan, so-called deal of the century.
Or the Trump peace plan.
Yeah, and we're giving our thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, briefly, it's just a proposal by the Trump administration revolving around the Israel and Palestinian conflict, something that both Nick and I are very strongly opinionated about. Coming from an Arab background, I've always grown up knowing about the Palestinian struggle, and yeah, Nick and I were at university, and we bonded.
We were at university.
Yeah, we were at university, and we bonded over politics, and especially Palestine and the struggle, really.
And the plan that's come out is just such a one-sided,
Well, exactly. It literally was made for the Palestinians to reject it and to obviously show like Israel as the somewhat pushing for peace, and then the Palestinians rejecting it. But if they accepted, and like MBS from MBS just came out last week, he said that he accepted it, and he said the Palestinians should accept or shut up. And it just threw out.
Well, it shows how
the money drives everything.
But like the dictators of the Middle East, how they've changed so much over the years. Like
exactly, they used to be so for Palestine,
especially Syria. There's still somewhat of, you could still argue the Syrian government supports the Palestinian movement, but because that's because Bashar al-Assad and his father they've been around. They've been like the one regime for a long time, but now, like you look at Saudi Arabia, they've really MBS has come through and doesn't care at all.
Well, he's the problem I see is also the Emirates as well, the United Arab Emirates, the foreign policy, the foreign minister, he said that it's a great deal, that the Palestinians should accept it, but not understanding like the actual, Well,
they're all tied up in the US.
Exactly, but the thing is that they don't have any concern for the Palestinian, how they the Palestinians and how they feel, and all the rejected Palestinians who are living in Lebanon and throughout the world who literally just want to return, and that's what the UN resolution was, and they were supposed to return and whatever. Anyway, getting into it,
it's a mess.
Mess. What's your opinion on the whole topic with Jared Kushner and everything? What do you think their actual aim was of the peace plan?
Like my opinion, I think it might be a bit different, but I don't think Jared Kushner and his team, they don't have a clue about what to do in this situation. Like Kushner, his partners in the plan were David Friedman, which is Donald Trump's former real estate lawyer, and Jason Greenblatt, with Donald Trump's former bankruptcy lawyer. They're the ones who created the plan. I don't think they actually know anything about the Middle East. And like if you look back, you can find that these plans have been pushed from Israel for a long time. Like during the Oslo Accords, I was watching a video the other day with Noam Chomsky. He was talking about how they had a similar plan to this, and it looked way too much like a Bantustan, which is like the map for black people in South Africa during apartheid.
I saw that.
And they didn't want to talk about the map then, but now they don't care anymore. Like they didn't want to show what the map actually looked like because it looked so bad. Yeah. But now they just don't care anymore.
Yeah, well, the map, like as I can see here, the map literally like has sections. It's not even like if you were to, like every country, you're able to look at a map and you go, okay,
it's a coherent piece.
Exactly, it's like a
one
jigsaw piece. It literally is a jigsaw piece, but even for the Israelis as well. Like, don't get me wrong, I've got nothing against the Israeli like plight, but the thing that like I struggle to understand, and this is the same with the left wing in Israel, is that the right wing government and their push for annexation, and they're going into a third election now that they're clutching at straws. They've got nothing to push their agenda.
Well,
Benny Gantz and
so far right, both of them.
Benny Gantz and Netanyahu have got the same agenda, and it's just who like. Netanyahu's got his corruption case, so I feel like they might sway towards Benny Gantz. The first election, it was mainly Netanyahu. Benny Gantz came in heavily in the second election, and now I think it's going to go to Benny Gantz in the third. And then, but this whole thing about annexation,
it makes no difference who wins, isn't it?
Exactly. It's literally it's the exact same situation going to happen. The Jordan Valley is going to get annexed. the Israeli settlements are going to continue, and the 1967 borders that it should be based on are going to be out the window. There's no two-state solution that's possible. It's dead, and that's what pisses me off.
Well, you can't have a state with a permanent Israeli occupation. Like you can't have a state where another country is permanently occupying your country.
Exactly.
It's never going to work.
And just what happened recently and this is moving on to Gaza, but what happened recently in Gaza, I don't know if you saw in the video today, they literally, some people in the IDF had these bulldozers and they came into Gaza, but they came into Gaza, I think there was two, and I don't know the full details, but a Palestinian was dead and got shot, and I feel like they came in to pick up the body, and they came in with bulldozers to pick up the body, and the body was hanging over as they drove through Gaza. The body was just hanging off as some sort of like Saudi Arabian like hanging in the streets,
public execution.
Just it's a scare tactic, and obviously
it's disgusting.
It's disgusting. So yeah, everything that's involved in the ICC at the moment, with Australia, who's
we're pushing to.
I saw your tweet about it. Yeah,
that's quite unfortunate.
What do you think about the rejection of the?
I think that any country in the world that is worried about being investigated, clearly, when anyone on the left talks about, we don't like the NSA spying on us, or like we don't like Facebook collecting our data, and they always say, if you've got nothing to hide, then why do you care? Like if you haven't done anything wrong, why do you care?
Exactly.
Well, now like Israel, if you've got nothing to hide, then why should you care? If you haven't done anything wrong, as they always claim, what do they have to hide?
Well, have a court cases.
Yeah.
If you feel that you're not guilty. And you've literally, as you said, got nothing to hide, then have the court case, because you've got nothing to be worried about. But they obviously have something to be worried about, and Australia has backed.
Yeah, it's unfortunate our country is gotten involved in this, and
Well, understandably, Australia don't really have much leeway in terms of what they can vote for. Like,
we're the lapdog of America.
Even if it was in Labor, I feel like the Labor Party would do the exact same.
Well, Bill Shorten, the former Labor leader, did say he would recognise Palestine if he was to become Prime Minister.
The thing is that there's the problem that I see is that it doesn't matter what that if they reject Palestine or not. It's about the sort of the leeway that Israel gets. They've got no sanctions against them. They've got the seventh largest military in the world. They occupy the West Bank. They surround Gaza in an open air prison.
It's a prison, yeah.
And I'm not I don't agree with any sort of violence. And I wouldn't say I'm a pacifist, but I'm close to a pacifist. But in saying that, it's the way the world addresses the situation, especially at the UN and whatever. The war has been going on for way too long. It's one of the longest wars, I'm pretty sure.
Okay,
it is
since the 1967,
and it's one of the longest wars anyway. I'm not sure if it's the longest war.
Well, then not the Korean War hasn't ended. So that's technically not really. It's not really fighting, but
which is just more like a stalemate sort of thing.
Yeah.
They became to a.
But also, it's one of the longest
common ground. The borders.
Yeah.
They came to a common ground.
Yeah.
Whereas there's not really a common ground here.
No, of course not.
Because at the end of the day, the Palestinians have the West Bank and they have Gaza, but the West Bank just keeps shrinking. West Jerusalem and East Jerusalem just keeps shrinking, and it's becoming an overwhelming majority. The very fact, and why I believe that there's an apartheid plan is it's an apartheid plan, and there is apartheid in Israel. Is that they got rid of the Arabic as the main language. There's 20% of Israel is Palestinians. Arab Palestinians who speak Arabic, and they got rid of Arabic as the second language, as an official language. They're disregarding any sense of Muslim or Arabic or Christian. It's all about.
I think, but do those Palestinians, the Arabic people that have Israeli citizenship, they still have the same rights, don't they? As
somewhat. There's still laws in the Knesset that have been pushed in the Knesset and whatever in the government that distinguishes a Palestinian Arab or an Arab in Israel.
Well, I know, like the way I see that apartheid works in Israel is the Palestinians that live in the West Bank, they can't go on the same roads as Israelis, and they can't catch the same buses. You know, that is a very obvious form of apartheid. But that's also, when people talk about it like that, they expect it that people in the West Bank should have the same rights as Israelis, which like is a complicated issue, because on one hand, if you want to have the same rights, then you're kind of amalgamating them into Israel.
Exactly.
You know, should they have the same rights, or should they have their own state? At the end of the day,
I think at the end of the day, it should be their own state.
Yeah.
But at the moment, the way I see it, and what I like, the thing is that with the Arabs that live in Israel, they, in this new peace plan, there's potential for them to lose their citizenship, Israeli citizenship, and what Kushner and Trump have pushed is that they've given these aspects of the plan that the Palestinians have to accept and abide by, and these rules that they have to abide by, and if they don't meet them, then there's no peace plan.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
And obviously, people can have their two ways about and their 2 cents about the Middle East and the way that they should run in their governments or whatever. But at the end of the day, the plan wants Palestinians to build a democracy. No Arab state has a democracy except for Tunisia, which is very new. To a democracy. It's not a Western democracy anyway.
Yeah. And
they have to meet that in 4 years, which will never happen. And after the 4 years, they can then have a state.
Yeah, all the demands are then, like, even if I'm sure if they met them, they would just say, "Oh no, it wasn't met because of this or because of that."
Exactly. There's literally the Palestinians have a knife at their neck and a knife at their back and in front. Whichever way they move, they're in a bad position, and that's why. And
it's ridiculous that there's so many hoops. If Palestine wants this plan at all, they have to jump through so many hoops. And then at the end of the day, they don't get anything out of it. They lose another 30% of their territory. They lose access to the holy sites in Jerusalem. Yeah. They lose access to the Al-Aqsa Mosque. They lose control of their border crossings with Jordan. They lose the Jordan Valley. And they have to allow a permanent Israeli military occupation. This is only... And then they get, $50 billion an investment into their country if pass all those criteria. Well, and the only thing Israel has to do in all this time, in 4 years, is just not build any more illegal Israeli settlements, which they're illegal already.
Netanyahu has already pushed to build these settlements, though. He's for the annexation of Jordan Valley. He's pushed for that, but
this is, I think he's talking about building any settlements inside of the map that they gave them. So outside of that, they can just annex and claim all that territory.
But that territory. But the thing is that they haven't accepted it. Palestine hasn't accepted it. So they're still going to go ahead with this plan, no matter what it is, and they're going to squeeze as much space as possible and still stick to this plan. But the one thing I want to mention is that Israel's relationships with neighboring countries, as what we were talking about with MBS and Saudi Arabia and the UAE and now Jordan, I think it was last month, Israel and Jordan were coming to an agreement, a massive gas deal, and hundreds and thousands of Jordanians went to the streets because obviously they're in support of the Palestinians. So I feel like as time goes on, the Palestinian struggle just gets worse.
Absolutely.
There's no and as we're going to talk about in another episode about the US elections, but Bernie Sanders, who is Jewish and who obviously is on the left and has left views on politics and foreign policy and whatever, he understands that the Israelis have every right to live. And I agree with that. The Israelis have every right to live, but not at the expense of Palestinians.
Yeah, and everyone can agree that they should, the majority of the people you meet in the world, if you said to them, I think that Israel should have their country on the 1967 borders, and I think Palestine should have a country based on the 1967 borders. And I'm sure 90% of the people you meet will go, that sounds like a pretty good idea. Yeah. And it's the international consensus. The majority of a lot of countries around the world, they think that's the right thing to do. But it hasn't and every time that there's been the Oslo Accords or Camp David or any of this stuff,